Ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, probably my favorite meal of all time, pasta with Bolognese sauce. This is the way that my grandmother makes it, but also with a little bit of my twist. You know, this is a very northern Italian dish, very homey. I grew up with it being called ragu toccio. It's the epitome. It's like a stew of all these different offcuts of meat that just makes something so delicious when they're finished. And it is honestly my favorite meal of all time. It's outstandingly delicious. All right, so let's get started. Kind of fundamental of Italian cuisine from the beginning is called soffritto. You have onion, carrot, celery. Start with the onions. So we have about 1.5 onions here. I mean, 1 onion will do. I have about 2 to 3 celery stalks and 1 full carrot. You want to have about 60% onion and then 30% carrot and celery. The whole idea behind this is that you want them to almost dissolve into the soffritto and the sauce, so you're not getting big chunks of them. We want small, tiny pieces that are gonna melt into the sauce. So there we have our soffritto mix, okay? So we have the 3 carrot, onion, celery, like I said, basics that go into Italian soffritto, and we're gonna cook that really slowly in some olive oil. Caramelize them at a very low rate, like medium to low heat with olive oil is fine. You don't wanna saute or cook at very high heats with olive oil. So you want it to caramelize all the way through. If you can imagine that, you don't want it to start caramelizing on the outside, you want it to caramelize like from outside to outside all the way through. Now we're gonna slice some garlic. Like I said, I prefer to slice garlic than kind of chop it really roughly. I think the flavor is nicer. You don't bruise the garlic. We're also gonna do some chopped rosemary. You can add your rosemary in now, like I explained earlier. Hard herbs, things like rosemary, sage, herbs like that, they can stand up to long times of cooking. All right, so depending on the size, 2 to 3 cloves of garlic and probably 2 sprigs of rosemary is gonna be enough, okay? So soffritto is ready to go, nicely caramelized all the way through. We're gonna get our garlic, our rosemary, mix that through just a little bit just to get it coated with the oil, and then we are going to add our tomato paste as well. So we're gonna add about 2 tablespoons of tomato paste to the sauce. Tomato paste is quite acidic. What you wanna do is you wanna cook it down and caramelize it. You wanna take it a couple shades darker than it comes out of the tube or the can or whatever you buy it in. Really just add it in, saute it around in a bit of the oil. Then we're gonna add the meat right after that, so you won't burn the tomato paste. Just keep an eye on it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna add our ground beef, our ground veal, our ground mortadella, and our ground spicy Italian sausage. So we're just gonna brown the meat completely. So it's nice and crumbly, all the way cooked, just nice and brown. Again, we're just building layers of flavor here, guys, so taking your time. We have the Appassimento, beautiful, delicious red wine. We are gonna add this in now. Deglaze the meat, meat's been browned. Again, you're just gonna add probably about half a cup of wine right now. Add the wine, cook it down, make sure you cook off all the alcohol. All right, so wine's reduced, tomato time. So for this one, we added about 2 jars or 2 cans of tomatoes. Use what you want, use your favorite brand of tomato. I like canned Italian tomatoes, picked at the peak of their ripeness. So now that the tomatoes are in, this is the part where you have to wait. Don't add sugar to your tomato sauce. Don't try and make it speed up. These pieces of ground meat that you're using are tough cuts of meat. You want them to braise, you want them to become tender, release all their flavor. You want the tomatoes to cook down, release their sweetness, caramelize. Take your time. I think you should probably let this sit for at least 1.5 to 2 hours on low heat. Stir it constantly so you don't scorch the bottom. One of the biggest things that you'll notice is when the tomato sauce is almost done, the oil will separate out of the meat and the tomatoes. It'll start to rise to the top. You'll get a thin layer of fat on the top of the tomato sauce, and the fat should be red because it's died from the tomatoes from cooking for so long. So that's a really like a surefire way that you can check if the tomato sauce is cooked long enough, okay? All right guys, so sauce is cooked. I got the water on. The water should taste like the sea. In another video, I'm gonna show you how to make fresh pasta. For this episode, we're gonna use dried pasta. And don't get me wrong, fresh pasta is delicious. It's velvety, it's beautiful. It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful dish. But for this one, we're gonna use some really high quality dried pasta, and it's gonna be delicious. So you're gonna want more water than you need for the amount of pasta that you think you're gonna cook, okay? And then salt, coarse sea salt always. Avoid iodized salt like the plague. So I got bigger hands. For that small pot of pasta water, I'm gonna put about that much. That's about 2.5, 3 tablespoons, okay? So let's just do a little real talk. People always under-season pasta water. You guys have all been in the ocean, had a wave hit you in the face and it's been too salty, but it should taste like that. Like that's what the water should taste like. You need to make sure that you're seasoning that pasta. It's harder to add salt to a pasta dish afterwards rather than seasoning it all the way through. Seasoning your pasta water is a hugely important step. So please, 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 season your fucking pasta water. I love you guys. So pasta's cooked, we're gonna drain. Don't cook your pasta in advance and don't rinse your pasta. You wanna keep that starchy, salty deliciousness on the outside. Pop that back in the pot. We're gonna put a little bit of sauce in just to kind of coat. All right, so plating up, again, super simple guys. Like this is a family meal. You don't need to get fancy with this. So I'm gonna add a little bit more sauce on the top here. Parmigiano Reggiano, real Parmesan cheese. So I'm gonna make it rain. Making it rain, making it rain. All right, so thanks so much for joining me with this one, everybody. This is a time-consuming recipe, but super, super simple on the scale. Very easy to do. Impress your friends, impress your family. This is my favorite meal of all time. I hope you enjoy it.